Hi, and welcome to Read Becca. I thought we would do a quick Pride recommendations, pulling from some things I've read and loved that might be a little more off the beaten path than stuff you have seen before. So personally for me, my identity, I'm so ambivalent about my own gender and sexuality that I think I could fit in multiple different labels, and there are people who have so hard fought or so strongly identify with specific labels within a certain definition that I don't really hold to a specific label beyond just really, I'm very definitely not cis hetero. So that's me. And if you have any questions, I'm pretty much an open book about that topic. I'm happy to accept all pronouns, but I tend toward she, her, or they, them pronouns. So I pulled these recs from both my own collection and my library, and I constrained myself to a rainbow of spines, and that made me realize that, you know, a lot of the SFF stuff I read really has a lot of black and gray and white, so publishers, you really need to get some more colorful spines on those books. So on to what I'm going to recommend, and first up is a spoiler for my own TBR. So this is the only one that I have not read at some point. So firstly, we have Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. And I believe the group read for the QueerLit Readathon for this month is going to be Freshwater, also by Akwaeke Emezi, but I've read that book, so I kind of wanted to participate in spirit, but I've already read the book, so I didn't really want to pick it up. But I did love Akwaeke Emezi's writing, so I'm very happy to be getting to this. I've had it on my TBR since it came out and been wanting to get to it. It's quite a short book. So as I understand, our protagonist, Pet, is a transgender character, and in this world, the existence of monsters is gone, basically. So everyone believes that monsters are no longer in the world, but then this monster hunter comes through, and Pet meets the monster hunter, and it convinces her to help it find a monster that it's hunting. But everyone doesn't really believe Pet that monsters are back in the world. So it should be very interesting, kind of fantastical themes, and Pet is transgender, but from what I've heard, that is not a major element. However, I'm very on board with there being queer stories where, you know, queer people just exist. I read a wonderful article by Gailey where they wrote about learning that queer stories could be happy stories, basically, and that we need the types of stories where queer people just exist. So it doesn't always have to be about queer trauma. So actually I will try and find that and link that down below. So looking forward to getting into this on my June TBR. So next up we have Me, Myself, They, and the author I believe goes by Luna now, so Luna Ferguson. This is a very difficult memoir, but well worth reading. So the author came up through quite hard times, and it's very much the traumatic story of a queer upbringing, where they were just horrifically bullied, kind of out on their own too early, and through that discovered their identity through much trial and error. And this also includes the fight for their gender identity to be recognized legally. So in Canada, fighting for legal documentation to correctly portray their gender identity. So I really enjoyed that element of this particular biography. Next, we have one I've talked about quite a bit, The Deep by River Solomon. I think this is the best entry point to Solomon's work. It's quite short and it seems very accessible to me. It's a little less bleak than their other work. So River Solomon is a non-binary author themselves, and this story features mermaids who are the descendants of African slaves who fell overboard on slave ships and spawned that colony. So our protagonist Yetu is the memory keeper for this mermaid people. And Yetu kind of goes through these cycles where the memory of their trauma is released back to the people. And then they go through catharsis and return it to her. So it has these echoes of Ursula Le Guin's Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas for me, where it is the single individual who bears the weight of an entire people. So I highly recommend this. This features both a non-traditional gender, so the mermaids are certainly not binary in the human sense. And then the protagonist also has a queer relationship with someone in this book. So a couple of great representations there. So next up we have Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe. And Maia uses EM pronouns, and this is a traditional memoir, but in graphic format. So it starts from childhood and looks at growing up and not really feeling like E felt like E fit the available gender options, really. Having a family who was very accepting, but didn't have the language really for the way that Maia wanted to live. And so both gender and sexuality are explored in quite a bit of depth. It does get graphic, and there's nudity. There are reproductive health elements where visits to the doctor occur and are kind of traumatic. So there is a lot of graphic content, I would say, in that aspect. But then on top of just the element of gender discovery, this also is all about discovering the language to actually communicate with others about your own gender and sexuality in a way that I really haven't seen before. So I think this is one definitely to pick up. It's gorgeous art. It's very unflinching about its exploration of the topic of gender. Next up, so I have Buffering by Hannah Hart. And Hannah, I think probably a lot of people on YouTube know who Hannah is. Hannah is one of the early famous YouTubers who was famous for My Drunk Kitchen. She's absolutely a delight. She's very funny, and she, at a time when we were just kind of getting into having very polished influencers who were the people that were getting famous, Hannah's brand was really just, you know, her being public about her failures and kind of having a sense of humor about them. So I think she's just a delight as a human being. But this is her memoir, and it does talk about that, about finding her way into her career in YouTube. It is very much also about growing up in a dysfunctional home and coming out of the closet as a lesbian. So beyond all of that, in terms of elements, she grew up with a mother who is, I can't remember if she has bipolar or psychotic disorder, but just very much a unstable home with a profoundly mentally ill person. So she is someone who's very much like, I don't think she ever has actually been a comedian, but has that sense of being a great sense of humor out of trauma. So I really love this for that element. The coming out stories that she has is really great as well, and talking through that here. So this is a wonderful alternation between kind of light humorous content in the memoir and really heavy, hard-hitting stuff. At the end, you know, she gives a scathing comment on how much she feels society has really failed the profoundly mentally ill. And I think it's a very hard-hitting, great, easy to read, easy to understand memoir. Next, we have Seeing Gender by Iris Gottleib. And this is another illustrated book, but this is more illustrated topical. So this one talks all about the gender pronouns, gender symbols. It gets into just defining genders and sexuality. It goes into individual topics. It talks about queer icons. So we have right here, we've got Marsha P. Johnson, and beautiful, colorful artwork relevant to what's going on right now in the world. We have a section on residential schools and their erasure of Indigenous third genders, and we've got a section here on third genders. So really informative and very easy to read and consumable, so really highly recommend this just as a reference or coffee table book. It is so great. So next up I have The Rapture of the Nerds by Cory Doctorow and Charles Stross. This is a very strange novel. It was written by the two authors, each writing a section and then sending it to the other person and then writing the next section. So it definitely has a sense of them one-upping each other. I love it because it is, it's a very futurist. So this is all about singularity, and there's a lot going on in the world. I think it would be really impossible to explain the plot because it's so all over the place. And there's something going on constantly, and really that it serves to distract you from the movement from point A to point Z. So really this is all about singularity though, and the argument between the peoples of the world, where we have certain factions. Some people are very against uploading yourself into the cloud, and other people are very for it and are almost proselytizing it as if it's an afterlife. So there are decisions to be made there, but then there's so much going on. And the main character does go through a gender transformation, but that's not as much why I have it on here. So let me read a line here from this. So the main character's name is Hugh. Hugh, he says, "What have they got you wearing?" Hugh looks self-consciously at his party outfit, which is computed in such obsessive detail that it practically strobes. He shrugs. Then he notices. He's a he again. Why not? Gender's just a slider, just like everything else. Someone or something slid at male words at that razor-sharp moment when Hugh crossed over from there to here. So this one really explores transhumanism, and to me, at least, I think where we're at, where we're discussing transgender and non-binary and all the outlying genders, we'll be discussing transhumanism in the future in the same way, where we are talking about what identity may mean when you can alter your body in many ways, maybe non-organic ways, or perhaps even not have a physical body. So I think those conversations are forthcoming. I think this kind of starts tackling that. And if you know the authors, they're very into those topics. So really good exploration of those topics here. So next up we have the aforementioned Sarah Gailey, River of Teeth. This is the first novella in the American Hippo series, duology with some short stories. And this is an alt history story all about a late 1800s kind of Wild West, or not quite West, where there was a proposed idea of importing hippos into the bayous. So this is a take on what it would actually be like if that happened. Now, we've got many POVs here. This is all about a heist crew who are kind of out for revenge. Can't say too much more than that about the actual plot, but it's very Wild West and kind of swashbuckling, riverboat casinos, explosives. So it's really fun time, and this is another one where it's the characters just are queer. There is not really any exploration of queer trauma whatsoever. It's not huge to the plot. There is a queer relationship between two of the characters. So we have a gay man and a non-binary character who's they, them pronouns. We also have a woman who cross-dresses. It does not seem like she is transgender based on the text, possibly gender fluid though. So quite a bit of representation there, but this is just a fun read. So next up we have Naturally Tan by Tan France. Tan France is one of the Queer Eye for the Straight guys currently, and I was very lucky to actually go to a touring event right after this came out, and he is just as delightful in person as you would expect. Really enjoyed being able to see him talk about the book. This is his memoir. It talks very much about growing up in England as a South Asian kid and kind of the two-pronged bullying that he faced as both a South Asian and as a queer person. It talks about his journey of coming to the US and then pulling from his experience in a household that was particularly concerned with modesty. He used that to his advantage when he came to the US and was able to market to people who were very modesty aware in Utah, which is where his husband lives. So really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the background of seeing a queer person who came up in a Muslim household and that heritage that he has. So I really recommend this for that element. It's also got really gorgeous end papers. This almost look like the Iris Gottleib artwork as well. It's really nice bright colors. All right, so we're almost there. Second to last, we have The Bricks That Built the Houses by Kate Tempest. And I believe Kate goes by they, them pronouns. They are a spoken word artist and rapper, and this is their debut novel. I read it a few years ago when it came out, but it's really a fantastic novel, and you can get that sense of their being very lyrical. It's not written in verse, but it has a sense of rhythm to it. So this is also very dear to their heart, you can tell, because all of their work is very focused on working class England, and this is working class London. So we have two kind of main characters. We have one who is a waitress who wants to be a dancer, and and then the other one is a drug dealer, and they're a lesbian and bi individual, and so they get entangled with each other after a crime, sort of. So we then get backstories for their entire multi-generational history in London and their families. I think what's so stunning about this novel is just how tangible the characters are. They really feel like somebody you could just meet on the street. So if you were looking for a gritty contemporary, this is a really good one to pick up. So finally, that I have to hold up, I've got The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. And this is a middle grade novel, as you can tell. If you don't know who Neil Patrick Harris is, he is kind of a gay advocate, a famous actor. He is a magician and a puppeteer, lots of things, but he's very delightful. And he and his husband have adopted quite a few kids, and that plays a role here. So the primary character is a runaway who left after he realized the person that was taking care of him was kind of using his magical skills, and this is illusion magic, not wizard magic, was using his skills as a magician to perform cons. And so he gets away and he finds himself in the small town of Mineral Wells, where he ends up at the magic shop, which is run by one of the two Mr. Vernons, and he meets their adopted daughter. So there aren't any queer characters in the kid group here, but there is wonderful found family between the kid characters, and they kind of go off on an adventure with the carnival, and he sees some of the cons that he was using at the carnival. Realizes they're not such good guys, but we do have that great found family, and we have the pair of dads who have adopted the kid. So I really wanted to hold that up here because we just don't see that so much in middle grade novels. So I think it's becoming more prominent, and I really have enjoyed this series a lot. So there is my rainbow. I am terribly remiss to not have Phoenix Extravagant to hold up here. It would be on the red range. It's got a lovely red spine by Yoon Lee, and Yoon Lee's work is wildly queer. but absolutely nobody is reselling that stuff, so you can't get that at the secondhand stores that I go to shop for books. So I would really recommend Phoenix Extravagant if you are looking for options for this month's reading, and it has a wonderful story about an artist who just really wants to do their art, but they get involved in a fantastical military for the colonizers of their people, and have to kind of almost damage their own culture, they realize. So it very much looks at war from the perspective of the impact on culture and civilization and these small people, not the military and those in power. So I really love it for that aspect. It has a non-binary protagonist, it has a queer romance, it has a committed, loving poly-triad as one of the secondary characters' parents. It has a lesbian, so it's just super diverse. I really recommend almost anything that Yoon Halley's written, I've read, and can confirm is great representation. So that's it for my recommendations. We've got the rainbow here. So I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed my picks. If you have any great ideas for me based off of these, I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more.